All right, so you've given us quite a collection of sources this time.
Yeah.
All about one very powerful artwork.
Indeed.
Francisco de Zurbaran's The Death of Saint Bonaventure.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal, as always, is to really dive into these sources with you.
Absolutely.
Pull out the most fascinating and interesting information about this painting.
Yeah.
And also about, why Zurbaran himself matters in the
Right.
grand scheme of art history.
Yeah.
So you can walk away feeling like you really, really understand this work
Mm-hmm.
without having to, go get an art history degree.
Exactly.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
So we sift through it all.
You do the heavy lifting,
Yeah.
unpack it all, make those
We
connections.
do the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
So to start, I think it's helpful to just get a sense of who this Zurbaran guy was.
Okay. Sure.
He lived from the late 1500s to the mid 1600s.
Okay.
And he was a major figure in Spanish Baroque painting.
Really major. Yeah.
And right off the bat, when you read about him, you see this nickname, the Spanish Caravaggio.
Oh, interesting.
So what does that tell us?
Well, that comparison to Caravaggio, it really tells us right away that he was a master of what we call tenebrism.
Okay.
That's the really dramatic use of light and shadow.
Okay.
These intense areas of light and these really deep, almost enveloping shadows.
So it's about contrast.
Huge contrast, yeah.
Yeah.
And not just for the sake of it. It
Yeah.
directs your eye, creates this drama, and
Yeah.
often you'll see that light really isolating the main subject,
Interesting.
almost like they're being spotlighted,
I see.
emphasizing how important they are.
So it's not just like a visual trick.
No.
It's adding a layer of meaning.
Absolutely layers of meaning.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Zurbaran, he was born in this town called Fuente de Cantos,
Okay.
but he really developed his style in Seville.
Which was a big deal then, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Okay.
But his style overall, it has this very distinctive feel to it.
Definitely.
When you see his work, you know it's him.
You can tell.
You get these strong, almost sculpted figures.
Yeah.
The way he paints fabrics is incredible.
Unbelievable, the detail.
Especially those heavy monastic robes
Oh, yeah.
with all the folds and the textures.
Mm-hmm. The textures are amazing.
And the colors. He often uses this pretty restrained palette.
Kind of,
You got
yeah.
some earthy tones, blacks, whites.
But then those bursts of color, you get these rich reds and blues
Yes.
and golds sometimes.
And they just pop, right?
They just pop, totally.
Because everything else is so subdued.
Exactly.
And it's interesting the sources talk about his rigorous drawing.
Mhm.
And I wasn't really sure what they meant by that.
Right. So rigorous drawing, it means he was so precise with his lines.
Okay.
Carefully outlining each shape, each form.
Okay.
It gives his figures this sense of structure and
Yeah.
weight.
They feel solid.
Very solid.
Almost like he's sculpting them, even before he starts painting.
I see.
And then you combine that with that dramatic lighting.
Yeah.
And it gives them this real monumentality.
Yeah.
They just command your attention.
They feel important, like they matter.
Exactly.
And the fabrics, the way he paints them,
it's crazy.
you could almost feel them, right?
Yeah, it's like you could reach out and touch the folds.
It's that real.
amazing.
And then his compositions, they're often pretty simple and still.
Mm.
It's not like, chaotic scenes with lots going on.
No.
It's very deliberate, very controlled.
Right.
And that adds to this sense of solemnity.
Absolutely.
You look at his work and you feel this sense of quiet and contemplation.
You can feel the weight of the religious themes he's exploring.
Exactly.
It's heavy,
Yeah, it's powerful.
Powerful stuff.
And speaking of religious themes,
Yeah.
that really ties into who his main patrons were.
It was.
Monasteries and convents. Oh.
He really became the go-to artist for these religious orders.
Interesting.
Dominicans, Franciscans, Carthusians, Mercedarians.
Wow, so he was really popular
He was, yeah.
with the religious orders.
Especially the Franciscans.
Okay.
They were known for their, austerity.
Right.
And their focus on, direct spiritual engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So Zurbaran's style really resonated with them.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It was simple, direct, and intensely spiritual.
And this was all happening during a very specific historical period,
Which was?
the Counter-Reformation.
Ah, right.
So this is the 1600s,
Mm-hmm.
and the Catholic Church is, trying to reassert its authority and influence.
In response to the Reformation. Right?
Exactly. So they were really using art
Right.
as a way to, inspire devotion and reinforce Catholic teachings.
Mm.
And Zurbaran's style is just perfect for that.
I see. So he was in the right place at the right time
Yes.
with the right style.
He was.
Yeah.
We should also mention the importance of Seville.
Right. You said it was a big deal back then.
It was a huge deal.
Why?
It was like a major cultural and economic hub
Okay.
in the 17th century.
So kind of like a center of everything.
Exactly. And a lot of that was due to trade with the American colonies.
So they had all that wealth coming in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was all this money, all this activity.
It must have been bustling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that, of course, created a really vibrant artistic environment.
So it was the perfect place for an artist like Zurbaran to thrive.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, I get it.
All right, so now let's zoom in on the specific painting you asked us to deep dive into,
Okay,
the Death of Saint Bonaventure.
let's do it.
It was painted around 1629, 1630.
Okay.
So definitely during his mature artistic period.
Right, he'd really come into his own by then.
Yeah, totally.
Now, one thing I found interesting in the sources
Yeah.
is that there's a bit of a discrepancy about the original commission.
Yeah, one source says it was part of a 4-painting cycle for this college in Seville.
The College of San Buenaventura.
That's the one.
Yeah.
But then another source says it was actually commissioned by the convent of the Mercedarians of Seville.
So we're not totally sure.
Not 100% sure.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking,
Yeah.
does this, ambiguity
Yeah.
tell us anything about how the painting was received at the time?
Interesting question.
Or maybe about how important it was
Yeah.
for different religious groups in Seville?
That's a really good point. Something to think about.
Yeah, it's fun to consider those things,
Yeah.
beyond just what we see in the painting itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about St. Bonaventure himself.
Okay, so he was a saint, obviously.
He was a saint, yeah.
Yeah.
He lived in the 13th century,
Okay.
and he was a big deal.
Like, how big a deal?
Major Franciscan theologian, philosopher.
Wow.
He was even a cardinal.
So, really high up in the church.
Oh, yeah, very influential.
Mm-hmm.
And he earned this title,
A title.
yeah, seraphic doctor,
Seraphic doctor, huh?
which is
That sounds very grand.
it is. It's a very grand title.
Yeah.
And it basically reflects the
Yeah.
intensity and spiritual fervor
Okay.
of his writings and his ideas.
So not just a smart guy,
No.
but deeply spiritual.
Yeah, touched by the divine, they say.
Wow. Okay.
And the painting, it captures a very specific moment in his life,
Okay.
the moment of his death.
So a heavy moment
Yeah.
to depict.
Definitely.
There-
And this happened during the Second Council of Lyon.
Okay.
And he was actually there,
At the council.
yeah, playing a key role trying to reconcile the Latin and Greek churches.
Wow. So this wasn't just any death.
No, not at all.
It was a big event.
It was a major event, historically and religiously.
And it happened to be when he died.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Zurbaran's painting,
Yeah.
it's capturing this huge moment.
It's capturing the death of this major figure
Right.
at this really important event.
Gotcha.
So now that we have that context,
Mm-hmm.
let's actually look at the painting.
Okay, let's dive in.
What's the first thing that jumps out at you compositionally?
Oh, right away you see it's a deathbed scene.
Okay.
St. Bonaventure is the focus.
Right, front and center.
Yeah, and he's surrounded by all these figures.
Important figures.
Yeah, from the church and secular life too.
It's a big gathering.
It is, but it's not chaotic.
No, not at all.
Zurbaran has organized them so well.
Yeah.
You get these layers, this depth. It's almost like an architectural space,
It's very structured.
Very, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just a random jumble of people.
Nope.
And there's St. Bonaventure right in the foreground.
Yeah.
He's lying there, dressed in his Franciscan habit,
Right.
but he's also got the cardinal's biretta on.
The Beretta.
Yeah, it's that square red hat.
Oh, right, right.
You see it sometimes on cardinals.
I've seen it, yeah.
So it's showing both sides of him.
Yeah, the Franciscan and the Cardinal.
Exactly.
So it's emphasizing both of those roles.
Exactly. And the light, right.
Oh, the light's incredible.
It's shining right on him.
Yeah, and it's so focused.
It makes him look almost luminous.
Yeah, and he's so pale,
Yeah.
It just adds to that sense of peacefulness.
It's like a whole holy glow.
Almost.
And
yeah.
then you've got all the other figures around him.
And they're grouped in these distinct ways.
Yeah, on one side,
Yeah.
you've got those high-ranking church officials.
I see.
You could even see the Pope.
The Pope.
Yeah, probably Pope Gregory X.
Wow, okay.
He's got the papal tiara on.
A tiara.
That's
the three-crowned hat.
Right, the symbol of his authority.
Exactly.
And then the other cardinals are there too.
Yeah, all gathered around.
On one side.
On one side.
And on the other
you
side.
got the Franciscan friars.
Yes, his brothers from the order.
Yeah. So they're representing that side of him.
Yeah, His Franciscan life.
It's like two worlds coming together.
It is. It's really interesting how Zurbaran does that.
Yeah, the way he arranges them.
You can just feel the respect, the reverence.
Yeah, and it's quiet.
So quiet.
Almost like a hush has fallen over everyone.
Yeah, like everyone's holding their breath.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Really powerful.
And it's so well done, you know?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of figures in this painting,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't feel crowded.
No.
It doesn't feel chaotic at all.
It feels very orderly.
It does.
And that just adds to that sense of,
Yeah,
like,
the solemnity.
yeah, the solemnity
Yeah,
and the importance of the moment.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about the light and shadow.
Ah, the tenebrism.
Yeah.
So good.
It's such a defining feature of Zurbaran's style.
Mm-hmm.
So how is he using it here?
Well, the light is super dramatic, of course,
Yeah.
but it's not just like randomly placed. It's
Yeah.
very intentional.
Right.
It's focused on Saint Bonaventure's body. Okay.
And the faces of the main figures.
Okay.
And then everything else kind of fades into the shadow.
Just really highlighting those key elements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get this incredible contrast, right?
Yeah.
And it creates depth.
And it also isolates Saint Bonaventure.
Right. It's like that spotlight we talked about before. It's
Ah.
emphasizing his sanctity,
Yeah.
the holiness of this moment.
And the sources say that light isn't just for visual effect.
Right. It's symbolic, too.
Yeah.
It represents divine illumination.
Ah. So it's like a spiritual light
Say so.
shining down on him.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's really beautiful.
And notice how the light on him is softer, you know,
Yeah, it is.
than on the other figures.
They're gentle.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that adds to that sense of peace and reverence.
Yeah.
But then look at the light on the dignitaries, you know.
The cardinals and the Pope.
Yeah, it's much harsher.
Yeah, more intense.
It emphasizes their rich vestments,
Yeah.
the textures, the details. So the light is doing a lot of work in this painting.
It is, yeah.
It's telling a story.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about color.
Okay.
What do you notice?
Well, it's pretty restrained, isn't it?
Very restrained.
Lots of brown.
Earthy browns.
Yeah, and black.
And whites.
Whites, yeah.
It's a very limited palette.
It is, but it works so well.
Yeah,
It's not boring at all.
no, it's very powerful.
Yeah, and it fits the theme, you know?
Yeah, it
The
does.
solemnity,
The solemnity.
the religious context.
And those colors,
Yeah.
they really fit with the Franciscan idea of, like, simplicity.
Right, austerity.
Yeah, austerity.
Yeah, they weren't about fancy things.
No, they were about the spiritual.
Exactly.
But even within that limited palette,
Mm-hmm.
the sources talk about how incredibly skilled he was.
Oh, yeah, he was a master.
Yeah, they particularly mention his rendering of the whites.
The whites.
Yeah, like Saint Bonaventure's tunic
Okay.
and the other white fabrics. He manages to convey all these different textures
Just with white.
just with white.
That's crazy.
I know, it's amazing.
The Franciscan habit.
Yeah,
It's stiff, you know?
yeah, you can tell.
And you can see those sharp folds.
You can feel it
Yeah.
just from the way he's painted it.
Wow. That's skill.
It is.
It really is.
And then you get those pops of red,
White.
the cardinals closed, the curtain.
Right. And those little touches of gold.
Yeah, and the brocade.
It's like they anchor the composition.
Yeah, they're these like visual focal points,
They are.
and they add to the drama.
And the solemnity.
Yeah, without feeling out of place.
Yeah, they fit right in.
It's a really nice balance.
It is.
Okay, now let's talk about the figures themselves.
Okay.
How would you describe the level of realism?
Oh, it's very realistic.
Yeah, they feel so real.
They do.
Like you could reach out and touch them.
Yeah, almost like you're there in the room with them.
Exactly.
He gets the details, right? The textures of the robes, the expressions on their faces.
You could see every fold, every wrinkle.
You can, and the expressions are so interesting.
They are.
They're not like over the top. They're
Right.
very restrained.
But you can still feel the emotion,
Definitely. You can see the contemplation, the sadness.
the grief, but it's quiet.
Very quiet, yeah.
And that reflects this idea, right?
About death.
Yeah, the Christian idea of death as a transition.
A transition to eternal life.
Exactly.
So not something to be afraid of,
Right.
but something to accept.
And St. Bonaventure himself
Yeah.
is lying there so peacefully.
Almost like he's sleeping.
Yeah.
It's a very serene image.
And it remorphs that idea of like
Yeah.
the soul's immortality.
Right, that there's something beyond this life.
Exactly.
And it's not something to fear.
And then you have all those symbols of religious authority.
Right.
The Pope's tiara,
Yeah.
the Cardinal's hat.
Right by Bonaventure's head.
Exactly.
Like visual reminders of his importance.
His status in the church.
Yeah. They're not just decorative.
No, they're very symbolic.
They add to the meaning of the whole scene.
And then there are those still life elements, like the chalice,
Oh, okay.
the manuscripts on the table.
They're subtle, but they're there.
Yeah, they're not the main focus,
No.
but they're important.
They represent Bonaventure's intellectual life.
Yeah, and his spiritual devotion.
It's interesting how he incorporates those.
I know, it's a bit ahead of its time.
Yeah, like you said, it anticipates later Baroque art, where
Exactly.
still lifes become more common
Yeah.
in these religious scenes.
Okay, let's talk about the technical aspects.
Okay.
Because the sources really emphasize Zurbaran's skill.
Oh, yeah, his skill is undeniable.
They talk about his precise and rigorous drawing.
Right, which we discussed before.
Yeah, the way he outlines everything so carefully.
And the way he models the figures.
Yeah, they have such a sense of volume.
They feel three-dimensional.
Yeah, like they're actually there.
Yeah. It's like he's sculpting with paint.
And his brushwork,
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting how it varies.
Yeah, it's not all the same.
On the faces and hands,
Mm-hmm.
it's super controlled, super detailed.
You can see every little detail.
Yeah, like he's taking his time.
But then on the drapery, it loosens up.
It does. It's more free-flowing.
And that adds to the texture.
Yeah, it creates a different visual effect.
And it's not just about the brush strokes.
No.
He uses glazes, too.
Glazes.
Yeah, they're like these thin layers of paint,
Okay.
almost transparent.
And they create that, like, luminosity.
Exactly.
The way the light seems to glow from within.
Yeah, especially in the fabrics and the skin.
It's amazing.
It is. It's very subtle.
But it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it adds so much depth.
So, when we put it all together,
Mm-hmm.
what's the overall meaning of this painting?
Well, it's clearly packed with religious symbolism.
Yeah, we've touched on a lot of that already.
Right, like the presence of those church officials.
Yeah, it emphasizes Bonaventure's importance.
Exact.
His status within the church.
And then the Franciscan friars,
Right.
they represent his devotion to the order.
It's like both sides of him are there.
Yeah, his life within the church and his life as a Franciscan.
And the atmosphere, it's so serene, so contemplative.
It's peaceful, you know?
Yeah.
Even though it's a death scene.
Right. It's not scary or morbid.
Not at all.
It conveys this idea of a good death.
A peaceful passing,
Yeah. A transition to eternal life.
which is what his name means.
Yeah. Bonaventure.
Good fortune.
Good journey.
It all ties together.
It does.
It's amazing.
And his posture.
Yeah, he's so calm.
It's like he's meditating
It shows his acceptance.
of death,
Yeah,
but also of, like, what comes next.
exactly. The afterlife.
And then the light and shadow, those darker areas
Yeah.
and those intensely lit sections
They represent that passage.
to the divine,
Yeah, the transition from the earthly.
to the spiritual. It's beautiful how he does that.
In the setting, it's pretty austere, isn't it? Yeah, very simple.
Not a lot of ornamentation.
Which reinforces the idea
Yeah.
that for someone like Bonaventure,
Yeah.
who was so spiritually enlightened,
Yeah.
death wasn't an end.
It was a transformation.
Exactly.
So ultimately, this painting,
Yeah,
it's a commemoration.
of Saint Bonaventure.
Yeah. Of his life, his work, his beliefs.
It's a powerful tribute.
It is really powerful.
And it invites us to think about
Yeah.
our own beliefs about death.
Yeah, about the afterlife.
And what it means to live a good life.
Exactly.
A life devoted to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay, so in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
where does this painting fit within Zurbaran's career?
Well, it's a perfect example of his mature style.
Okay.
He had really found his voice by then.
He was at his peak.
He was, yeah.
And remember those religious narrative cycles we mentioned?
Yeah, for the monasteries.
This painting was part of that.
It was part of a series.
Yeah, depicting moments from the lives of saints.
And those saints, they were like
Models of virtue.
Yeah, examples for people to follow.
And this painting,
Yeah.
it stands out because it's so complex.
Compositionally,
Yeah.
Zurbaran was known for his single figures, you know?
Yeah, those really stark, powerful images.
And his still lifes,
Yeah.
which were super austere.
Yeah, very minimal.
But this is a multi-figure scene.
It is.
And he handles it so well.
It's not easy to do that.
No.
To have so many figures.
And make it work.
Yeah.
But he keeps it clear.
Yeah.
The narrative is easy to follow.
And it's still emotionally powerful.
It is, yeah.
And those still life elements,
Right.
the chalice, the manuscripts.
They add another layer to the meaning.
Yeah. And like we said, it's
Yeah.
a little bit innovative for the time.
Yeah, it shows he was pushing boundaries.
And it anticipates what would come later in the Baroque.
Exactly.
So Zurbaran, he really was the painter of the Counter-Reformation.
It was, yeah.
The way he depicts Saint Bonaventure.
Yeah.
So virtuous, so learned.
It's like he's saying,
Yeah.
this is what the church is all about.
Yeah, this is the ideal.
Strength, intelligence, spirituality.
It's a direct response to the Protestant Reformation.
Exactly, a visual argument.
And his influence, it was huge.
Huge.
He had a major impact on Spanish religious painting.
Oh, yeah, everyone was looking at him.
And on the Baroque in general.
Yeah, the whole Iberian Peninsula.
The way he used tenebrism.
Yeah.
The way he made figures feel so solid, so real.
It set the standard.
It did for generations of artists.
And it went beyond Spain, too.
It did, yeah.
To the Americas.
To the Spanish colonies?
His style was used for evangelization.
Wow.
It's amazing how far his influence reached.
It really is.
And, even in the 20th century, artists like Picasso were looking back at him.
Really?
Yeah, they saw something modern in his work.
Like what?
The simplicity of the forms.
Okay.
The monumentality of the figures.
And the light, right?
Oh, yeah, the way he uses light.
It's so striking.
It's timeless.
And it still inspires artists today.
Oh, absolutely.
Photographers especially.
Yeah, they're still learning from him.
It's amazing how influential he was.
He was a master.
He was.
And even though he was kind of forgotten for a while, he's now considered one of the greats of the Spanish Baroque.
Rightfully so.
Absolutely.